What changed in your life after the acquisition? Basically, how does it feel to have money that you've made after going through all these 7 years, 8 years of a painful process? Basically, what changed in your life?
So at first, nothing really, uh, because the company was ours and it was profitable. We were actually paying ourselves very decently early on when we actually like figured it out. So we were not 100% broke. We actually had a decent amount of money from profit, like actually DC bringing profit from the company, like every other month. So that was great, and so it's not like from zero to millions, but it was significantly a lot more. First thing that changed was being super happy that like look we made something that someone a company in the US wants to buy, which is insanely cool. That was the good part, and I honestly like the only thing that changed from me making money was actually moved out of my parents' house. Like that was the big change. I actually felt like, look, I think I got this. Okay, I can safely get. I could before, but now 100%. And but they too was we were now part of a bigger thing, right? So it was not as big as Accenture or IBM or Microsoft, but it was big enough like to be over 100 times as big as us. So we're like, this is scary, and we have to obey different rules now. Like we were very much anarchy, right? We just do whatever the fuck we wanted. Just like we want to invest in this different product, we just do it. And now we have to talk to different people, which led to us being more corporate and more stiff, uh, which led to mistakes, especially in how we would sell that we wouldn't do again. For example, like when we were, that's something I learned later on whale hunting, right? When you're selling to big companies are risk averse. The bigger they are, the less risk people want to take on. And then the more these people making the decisions are thinking more about themselves than the actual benefit for the company. So they want to look good by making decisions that are less risky. And one part of lowering perception of risk was that people in the table seemed to know what they were talking about, right? And uh, these retailers, they never make their decisions on their own. These tables, they have like maybe 4, 5, 6 people, and it's different people every time. Like maybe they get 3, 4 meetings. First meetings are more junior managers, and they like it. They bring it to their senior managers. Then he likes it, and the next meeting with the CEO, and then it's different groups of people that you have to bring. And every time we went there, we went in at least 3 people. It was me, Gustavo, and Daniel. Daniel would be the technical guy that would answer any technology question, and Gustavo would be the more salesy guy. He's more salesy than I am. Like he would promise the world and like make them excited. Like he's more extroverted, and I would be more operational. Like this is how we're gonna do it. This is how we're gonna make it happen. And it was a well-oiled machine. We just knew what each other were gonna say, and then that but that trip was expensive, man. That's 3 people, 3 hotel rooms, 3 tickets, 3 everything, right? And when we became part of a bigger company, like, nah, one guy. We're like, okay, I can be the hybrid. That's where I became more of a salesperson. I had to study more about how to sell because we would share this responsibility. So nobody was too much of a salesperson, right? And it was just me for almost 2 years, like going to clients and stuff. It was really hard, man, because you sit on a table and there's 5 people on the other side, you're on your own. That makes you look tiny, even if you're not. And like, who am I talking to? Like this one man show here. Like, where is everybody? Right? And then I would realize that mistake long time after. But I was like, this is not working, man. This is not working because they would make questions that I wouldn't know how to respond. Like, oh, how is your SLA for this plugin if this thing goes down? Like, how much do you want it to be? I just say whatever you want it, whatever. Uh, you know, but it was getting ugly for me. Like it was not working, and it was frustrating like that in many other ways to not be able to actually take those bets that we used to. Like man, like we did. They weren't terrible at all. Like they gave us a lot of freedom, but for some things more than others. For example, for one client, they're like, look, one person, like, okay, one person, but this client's going to take a while because I have to take care of this pilot project very carefully. So I'm going to spend an entire month in Boston with them doing this project together. And I go, all right, but only you. And then afterwards, someone else that would replace me to stay there with the project. But it was tough. That kind of thing, like we losing control of hard decisions, expensive decisions sometimes, was what changed most in our routines.
Yeah, but ultimately, also, I do think that there are a lot of interesting management lessons. You know, when you look at how Amazon does things, or even like Andy Grove at like high output management, which is kind of like the Bible of high quality management. There's a lot that you can learn about what these organizations make. How can you actually continue to make hundreds of millions, if not billions, in revenue and employ 50,000 people. I mean, there are formulas and specific things that are important to know. There might not be the best thing when it comes to being creative and finding like the solutions, like the probability that a retailer or anyone else could actually develop that CGI technology that you guys did, to solve that problem is very low, because it's a combination of like a bunch of rules that are there to preserve order, which is, I think, very complicated in order for creativity to truly happen, in combination with fear. I love that whole dichotomy that in your life, you either make decisions out of fear or out of love. And what you said, right, like how to do proper whale hunting, is that oftentimes people in big companies, they are in the self-preservation situation where they need to look great. It's that whole thing about no one gets fired about buying, when they buy IBM type of stuff, which is a horrible way of thinking about decision making, right? So, but that's how typically these people work, and they want to look good for their bosses. They want to make sure that it's this whole mini game, I learned that more than just interacting with these large organizations. It was actually more dating executives that were a part of some of these big companies in the 9 years in Silicon Valley, going out with like people that work at Google, Facebook, and other large businesses. And you realize, you're like, wow, these people live in this fucking fantasy land of like, oh yeah, my senior manager this, or the marketing person of that, or this, which in the end, it's that tribal human psychological behavior that, maybe you realize when you were 16, how important it is, right, to be able to properly read that and navigate through that. But I find that the same mechanisms that, when you were 16 can help you get laid, also help you close enterprise sales. The dynamics are very similar in one way or the other.
Yeah, it's true. You just gotta have courage and confidence in like getting to it, but also mitigating fear, like because it's less like getting laid; it's more like getting married. So the retailer has been like, all right, are you gonna be a safe partner? Are you gonna betray me? Are you gonna give me an STDs? It's more like that. That kind of stuff has been like, look, we have money, we're stable, we have story, we have a reputation, we have a lot of clients, we have a great team, we have a great culture, we do, a bunch of boxes to check. So some companies would send us technology, which was completely irrelevant to what we were delivering, but this gigantic checkboxes of technology safety that we had to have in our company, and it was this stuff that like I was like, man, who has all this to protect their data? We're not storing credit cards here, man. Nobody cares about the stuff we're storing here. Like we have some safety, but this stuff is next level. They're like, no, because we are protecting our CGI images because the competition can't see. Like, dude, come on, these big checkboxes, and we would check like we're honest, like we would check maybe 5. Like, well, that's what we have. Like, I do not have a chief security officer. That just doesn't matter enough for us to have you know, a CSO at this moment.